Breakups always feel final when you're still angry. You block, unfollow, delete the photos, box up the hoodies, and swear to everyone, including yourself, that you're done. That was me and Jordan, 8 months ago. The end of a 3-year relationship that had more ups and downs than a Six Flags coaster. We'd stopped talking after a spectacular fight about nothing and everything, standing in our old apartment's kitchen, voices echoing like a bad soap opera. We said things we couldn't take back, and that was that. So when I got a text at 1:14 a.m. on a Thursday night that just said, "Can I stay with you?" my brain short-circuited. No greeting, no explanation, just those 6 words. I stared at my phone in the dark, half asleep, half convinced it was some kind of dream. I hadn't heard from Jordan in months. I hadn't even thought about him, at least not out loud. "Still have your key," he added a minute later. He did. I never asked for it back. I'd told myself it was an oversight. A part of me had always assumed he'd never use it again. Yeah. Doors unlocked, I finally typed back. I lay there in bed with my heart racing, questioning every decision I'd made in my life, up to and including eating that entire frozen pizza for dinner. He arrived less than 20 minutes later, quiet as a shadow. I heard the door click open, heard the rustle of fabric, his shoes thumping softly as they hit the floor. I didn't get up, but I didn't fall back asleep either. I waited until morning to face him. I found him on the couch, curled up in an old quilt, still in jeans, his bag tossed on the floor like he hadn't even bothered unpacking. He looked smaller somehow, like life had shrunk him since I last saw him. Same soft jawline, same dark hair, but his eyes looked tired. "Hey," I said, leaning against the wall. He blinked up at me, disoriented. "Morning. You want to tell me what's going on?" He sat up slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. I didn't know where else to go. My new lease fell through. I've been couch surfing. Figured you'd either ignore me or, I don't know. I crossed my arms, skeptical. "You thought I'd let you in after 8 months of radio silence?" He looked at me. "You didn't change the locks." Fair enough. I made coffee. He took the first shower. The silence between us wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't hostile either. Just weird. He didn't ask to stay longer, but he also didn't leave. That night I left him the couch again. I didn't sleep well. Too much noise in my head. Too much memory. The way he used to roll into my side when the AC got too cold. The way he'd hum while brushing his teeth. Dumb things. Soft things. I woke up around 3 a.m. and realized my door was cracked open, and Jordan was standing there. He looked unsure, like maybe he'd started walking and only realized halfway what he was doing. "You okay?" I asked, voice groggy. He nodded. "Couldn't sleep." I should have said, "Go back to the couch." Should have closed the door and gone back to bed, but instead I lifted the blanket. He slid in without another word. We didn't touch. Not that night, but I could feel his presence beside me. Warm, familiar, dangerous. I told myself it was temporary. Just one night. But it never is. By the time I woke up, Jordan was already gone from the bed. For a split second, I thought I'd dreamed the whole thing. But when I padded into the kitchen, there he was, barefoot, wearing one of my old shirts like he hadn't skipped 8 months of my life. "You always did buy the softest laundry detergent," he said without turning around. I leaned against the counter. "Didn't realize you were into my laundry habits." He smirked, but didn't bite. The air between us was thick with unspoken rules. We moved around each other that morning like 2 magnets, unsure if they were attracting or repelling. He stayed on the couch the next few nights. We didn't talk much. I'd come home from work. He'd be there watching something I forgot we both liked. He cooked a couple of times. Made that pasta dish I used to burn every other week. It was infuriating how easily he slipped back into my space, like a song I thought I'd forgotten the lyrics to. But things really changed the night the storm hit. The power went out around midnight. I had candles, but no flashlights. The place was eerily quiet, aside from the wind howling outside. I was brushing my teeth when he knocked on the bathroom door. "I can't sleep," he said through the crack. "It's loud." I opened the door. "You've survived worse." "I know, I don't know, I got used to sleeping next to someone." That was a line he didn't need to cross, but he crossed it anyway. I gave him a long look. You coming in here to tell me that? No, he said, voice softer. I was coming to ask if I could sleep in your bed again. It felt stupid to say no when he was already standing there in nothing but gym shorts and vulnerability. So I let him in. Again. This time, it was different. We didn't just lie there like two people sharing space. He shifted closer. Then, closer again, until I could feel his breath on my neck. You still wear the same cologne, he whispered. And you still talk too much when you're nervous, he chuckled. That same low laugh that used to make my stomach flip. And then I felt his fingers brush against my wrist, light, hesitant. You ever think about us? He asked. I didn't answer right away. Because the truth was, I did. More than I wanted to admit. I try not to, I finally said. He nodded like he expected that. But he didn't pull away. His hand stayed resting against mine. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was loaded. He didn't try to kiss me. Not that night. But the space between us had officially changed. And there was no going back. I woke up to sunlight leaking through the blinds and the distinct warmth of another body beside me. For a second, I forgot. Then Jordan shifted under the covers, exhaled softly, and reality came rushing back. His hand was still resting near mine, like it had never left. I laid there silently, watching the ceiling, thinking about how dangerous it was to let ghosts get comfortable. Because once they stop haunting and start holding you again, it's harder to let them go the second time. He stirred, his voice low and husky. Morning. Morning, I replied, not moving. He turned toward me slightly, his leg brushing mine under the blanket. I didn't plan this, you know, I nodded. I figured. I didn't think you'd even let me in the door. Neither did I. He was quiet for a while. Then, can I ask you something? I glanced at him. You already are. Why'd we really break up? That question punched harder than I expected. Because honestly, I'd asked myself the same thing 100 times. Was it the stupid arguments? The timing? The pressure of trying to make a shared life when we were both still figuring out who the hell we were? I didn't answer right away. I think, I said carefully, we stopped giving each other the benefit of the doubt. Every little thing turned into a battle. We forgot we were supposed to be on the same team. He nodded slowly. I think I did a lot of that. We both did, I said, more quickly than I meant to. He shifted onto his back, staring at the ceiling now, too. I missed you. I closed my eyes. I didn't want to hear that. Because it was too easy to say. It was too easy to believe. You missed the idea of me, I muttered. No, he said quietly. I missed you. The stupid way you fold your socks. The way you talk to your plants. The weird little grunt you make when you're concentrating. I couldn't help the laugh that slipped out. I do not grunt. You do. It's like a little HRRNGH. It's very attractive. I shook my head, grinning despite myself. God, you're annoying. But you laughed, he said, turning his head to look at me. That's a good sign. His eyes searched mine for something. Permission, maybe. Forgiveness. Or just a reason to stay. Don't mistake nostalgia for a second chance, I said, more for myself than for him. Jordan leaned in slightly, his voice barely a breath. And if it's not nostalgia? My chest tightened. I didn't have an answer. He didn't push it. He just lay there beside me, quiet again. But something had cracked open. Something we'd both kept buried for too long. The days that followed settled into a rhythm that felt too easy. Jordan was still technically crashing on my couch, but he hadn't touched it since the storm. Every night, he found his way into my bed. At first, we didn't talk about it. We didn't even touch. It was just two bodies sharing warmth, pretending the past wasn't pressing in from all sides. But the unspoken gets heavier when it lingers. One night I found him in the kitchen, barefoot again in boxers and one of my old hoodies. Coffee mug in hand, like we were some domestic couple. Like this was normal. He turned when I walked in, gave me a lazy smile. You make the best coffee, he said. I literally use the same beans we used when you lived here. He shrugged. Maybe it tastes better now. I leaned against the fridge, arms crossed. You're really milking this couch surfing thing. Should I go back to the couch, he asked, but his tone wasn't playful. It was cautious. I looked at him, really looked. That's not the point. Then what is? He set the mug down and stepped closer. The space between us disappeared in 3 slow steps. The point, I said, swallowing hard, is that you're here like nothing happened. Like we didn't crash and burn last time. Jordan's eyes flicked between mine. Do you want me to leave? I hesitated. Because honestly, no, I didn't. But I also didn't know what I wanted from him anymore. I want you to stop pretending we're fine, I said. I want you to stop slipping into bed and pretending we didn't break each other. He looked down. I'm not pretending. Silence stretched out. The hum of the fridge was the only sound. Then, softly, he said, the first few nights after I moved out, I couldn't sleep. Not because I missed the apartment, I missed you. I kept reaching over in bed like you were still there. It wrecked me. Then why didn't you say anything? I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. Because I didn't think I deserved to. I didn't have a response to that, and I hated how much it hit me in the chest. He took a step back, the moment fraying between us. I'll sleep on the couch tonight, he muttered, but I didn't let him go. I reached out, fingers brushing his wrist, stopping him. Stay, I said quietly. But no more pretending. If we're doing this, we're doing it real. Jordan looked at me like he'd been waiting for that since the moment he walked back in the door. And for the first time in months, I felt something uncoil in my chest. Something like hope. That night, the space between us was different. It wasn't just sleep. It wasn't just comfort. We lay in bed, facing each other in the dark, like neither of us wanted to risk looking away. There was something raw about it, like we were trying to memorize each other in a new light. You remember the trip to Big Sur? Jordan asked quietly, voice rough from sleep. I nodded. You lost your phone in the tide pool and swore the sea gods were punishing you for stealing my fries. He chuckled. You were so mad. I wasn't mad, I said. I just knew you were going to blame me when your mom started calling. He smiled in the dark. She still brings that up, says it was the last time I sounded truly happy. I didn't know what to say to that. Then he reached out, slow, careful, and rested his fingers against my collarbone. Just a touch, but it anchored something between us. Can I be honest? He whispered. Now's the time. I think I stopped knowing how to love you the way you needed, and I hated myself for it. I felt that in places I hadn't touched since we broke up. I swallowed hard. And now? He took a breath. Now I think I'm ready to try again. If you let me. My first instinct was to laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was terrifying. But I didn't laugh. Instead, I closed the gap between us. Just enough to feel his breath on my lips. Just enough to see if he'd lean in. He did. The kiss wasn't perfect. It wasn't cinematic. It was slow, unsure, familiar and unfamiliar all at once. But it was real. We didn't rush. We didn't tear at each other like we had something to prove. It was quiet, cautious, like two people rediscovering a language they once spoke fluently. When we finally pulled apart, he kept his forehead pressed to mine. I didn't come back expecting this, he said. But you hoped for it, I replied. Yeah, I really did. The next morning, everything felt quieter, like the storm between us had passed but left debris we still had to sort through. We didn't leap into some renewed love story. We didn't spend the whole day tangled in sheets or whispering sweet nothings. Instead, we made pancakes, bad ones. The kind that are slightly burned on one side and still somehow undercooked in the middle. But we laughed. A real, low laugh that neither of us had used around each other in a long time. I forgot how weird your music taste is, Jordan said as I queued up an old playlist. And I forgot you dance like a drunk giraffe. I shot back, grinning as he did a half-hearted shimmy near the stove. The thing was, it didn't feel like a do-over. It felt like a different version of us. A quieter one. More careful. Less trying to win arguments and more trying to understand. Later that evening, we sat on the balcony, a blanket tossed over our laps. It wasn't cold, but it was habit. something we always did in the fall. I watched the streetlights flicker on one by one, the city humming below us. Jordan shifted beside me. "So, what now?" "You tell me," I said. He was quiet for a beat, then. "I want to stay. Not just for a few nights. I mean, try again, properly. No games, no sleeping on couches." I turned to him. "Even if that means talking about the hard stuff?" "Especially if it does," he said. We sat in that for a while. The quiet between us wasn't heavy anymore. It felt lived in. "I still don't trust this completely," I admitted. "I'm scared we'll just fall back into old patterns." He nodded. "I am too, but I think the difference now is I'd rather fight through it with you than walk away again." That hit somewhere deep, because that's all I'd wanted last time. Someone who wouldn't give up when it got hard. I didn't answer right away. I didn't need to. Instead, I reached for his hand under the blanket. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself believe that maybe love doesn't always come back the same way it left. Sometimes it returns quieter, wiser, and ready. 2 weeks later, Jordan was still here, but not in the vague, undefined way he arrived. Now, his toothbrush sat next to mine again. His shoes were by the door. He started doing laundry on Sundays like he used to. And he'd moved from crashing to reclaiming the half of the closet that was always, somehow, still his. We had the talk, the real one. Not just the sentimental middle-of-the-night confessions or the soft kisses that said maybe. We sat down, poured coffee, and laid it all out. The good, the bad, the parts that hurt to say. He told me about therapy. I told him about how lonely the apartment had felt after he left, even when I had friends over. We didn't try to excuse the past. We just faced it. And then we decided. This time, it wouldn't be about trying to get back to what we were. It would be about building something new. There were still moments of tension. We disagreed on dumb things like which side of the sink is his. I caught myself pulling away emotionally when we argued, old habits creeping in. But he didn't let it slide. He pulled me back in with a look or a hand on my knee or just saying, "Hey, I'm still here." And I did the same for him. One night, we were lying in bed and he rolled over with that half-asleep slur in his voice. "You know," he murmured, "I never really stopped being in love with you. I just forgot how to show it." My throat tightened. I didn't say anything for a second because it hit me in that exact spot, the one you protect after being broken. "I know," I whispered. Then I reached for him under the blanket and pulled him close, because this time I wanted to say it with action, not just words. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't magical or cinematic. But it was real. And for the first time in a long time, that was more than enough.